A minimum of 4. But there's so much. The donkey's got to have their bananas, you got to stop and go out. So it's not completely. Where are all these dumb pens of mine? Don't work. I had this stuff all picked out. See, the edges of a hair mass are always kind of strange, it's not real perfect. There are always a couple of little guys out of killer and well, a lot of collage and that sort of thing, but it's really got to pull together, you can't expect, the medium is not the message, I don't believe John Cage is right at all and stuff like that, I think the technique is not sufficient, you have to, there has to be a lot more behind it than that, but we sure have to be conscious of lose a drop off or I'll probably trash this one, but I may save the helmet, you see, cut it out again, because people have exceedingly short attention spans. And, well, with the demonstration and so on, if it isn't happening right away, anyone for tennis, they're falling asleep and so on. So you can't, they've got to see it happening. Like I have a wood engraving friend of mine, who is probably as competent as Ulrich Dürer, with wood engravings, but he has a little card with a little 1-inch hole cut out of it, and he'll drop that on his wooden piece, and he'll just cut what he sees through that 1-inch hole, and then he'll move it to another. Well, a group of 40 people looking at this little hole, what the hell's going on, It's too slow, see. All right, now we're ready for a couple of little washes in here, and let's just increase the black of his eye here a little bit. Well, this guy doesn't have to be an angel. Yeah, it could just be some sort of a mercenary or a warrior or something like that. Politician or jihadist from Iraq. Now we need a few dirty little pieces of this or that. These are really neutral grays. Eraser. It'd be pretty hard to erase this through watercolor, so I'll get rid of it now. And then we'll catch this little no shadow underneath here. Any cheek support. And the eyelid is so thick that it actually casts a shadow on the eyeball, and it's important that you sort of go for broke on those things. I used to teach gross anatomy, and I used to send probably my best anatomical students were female. They could really just lift out a bunch of intestines and separate the livers and that sort of thing. And, there was no sense of shaking hands or anything like that. The guys would be throwing up and fainting and so on. I said, what, this wimpy sort of thing. So the best people that I used to send down to Johns Hopkins were always these girls, and I was really impressed by that, in fact, I only sent a couple of them. And by sending, when I taught at University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, they had a terrific, they really were better drawers who took, the anatomy, eraser.
Erase.
Sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. I don't always try to hide things. I really, if people are interested in me pointing out the faults, I'd be more than pleased to do that. Sometimes I leave them because, it's a one-of-a-kind thing, and you're not going to find another one on the bottom of the toilet seat in Standard Oil restrooms or something. They're going to be just rare things. No. I make prints, but not of these pieces. And what was I doing here? case. Mother Nature doesn't seem to be happy out there. It will set a broken field running of lines against a cut paper edge. That will tend to give this a darker and spookier, well, not spooky necessarily, but kind of a darker quality. Well, these are hard-boiled erasers, and they're good for removing lines. The other stuff is a very soft eraser, but if you're using French paper, which may not be as erasable perhaps as it should because it's a printing paper. See, this will have an infinity sign in it, a little figure 8 laid on its side, which means that this is true for your paper too. On yours, it means that this is buffered against any kind of acid or anything. It shouldn't fall apart. It shouldn't yellow unless, you fry right underneath it every night with burgers or something. Then, something bad probably would happen. Now we can go back in with fresher, tinier eraser. The ankle of mine tends to give out every so often. God, I should not have left her in here. I've got to want to support this with black here.